Welcome to AdoptED, an informative and sometimes entertaining look at the world of adoption from foster care, brought to you by the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange. Together we'll explore resources, hear about interesting community happenings, and meet people involved in supporting Massachusetts adoptive families. I'm your host, Joe Sandagato, Director of Communications and Public Relations for the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange. We're so pleased that you've chosen to follow our AdoptED podcast. At MARE, we believe the best way to help introduce the process of adoption from foster care is through education, hence the cutesy little title of AdoptED. The theme for today's show is getting to know your community supports. In our inaugural post today, we're happy to introduce you to our agency and our team. We'll also have a visit later in the show from Allison Weissman from the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, or MSPCC KidsNet program, where Allison will discuss supplemental supports for foster and adoptive parents, which their program provides free of charge. And without further ado, I'm so excited to kick off the show with our opening segment called At the Table. Joining me at the table today is my co-host and Child Services Coordinator for our Western Mass region, Maureen Albano. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Joe.
And I'm probably going to slip into calling you Mo pretty much through the whole show. So Maureen also goes by Mo, and I go by Joe.
Okay.
So there we go.
So it is the Mo and Joe show, right?
It is. So you and I have a little bit in common, and I thought our audience might find it interesting to learn that we're both adoptive parents.
Right.
So tell me about your journey, and then I'll tell you about mine.
Well, my journey probably goes back a little further than yours. Mine started probably 35 years ago when I went to an agency and said, you're going to have to help us grow a family. And at that time, you had to present medical proof that you could not, or physically were not able to have kids. Yeah.
Wow.
That is so true. And you had to be a married couple, male and female. It has changed like 180 degrees.
So
since
different.
Then. Yeah.
I mean, and even with some of the struggles we have today, if you think about it in the context of, what did you say, 35 years, right?
Yeah.
So even over 35 years, how much progress we've made.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Tremendous.
Okay.
So it was a long process, 3 years waiting. They told you, don't get your hopes up too high. Who knows?
Sure.
When a child is coming and they call you at the last second, you have 24 hours notice. But we persevered, got a little boy who's now 33.
Oh, my gosh.
And then a few years later, a little girl who's now going to be 30 and getting married this summer. So
that's so exciting.
Anyway, it was like adoption has just changed my world, my husband's world. It's just been the most amazing experience.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So my journey started back in the 90s, and so the uniqueness of it probably is that I was in what was then deemed a partnered, non-legally married gay couple. And so we were surprised to learn that Massachusetts allowed for us to adopt together. We looked at all kinds of options. We looked at surrogacy, and we looked at international adoption and domestic private adoption, and then we came to learn about adoption from foster care, and it felt like a fit for us because we felt like here we are able to provide a home for children, and here are children who need a home. Yeah. So we did continue to look at international and domestic adoption, but there was a lot changing in the 90s with regard to what was going on in that world. There was a lot of exposure about what was going on in some of the countries, and it didn't sit well with us. So we landed on foster care adoption, and so a lot has changed there, though, for us. Your struggle was that, you had to have medical proof, and you had to show your marriage certificate. And our barriers were more around the fact that as a same-sex couple, it wasn't a time when we were really thinking about people building families. We were on the leading edge. We got officially, we got married in 93, but then officially in 06 when marriage equality became a standard here in the state. But at that time, it was tough. We went through all the training and we went through all the processes, but oftentimes we'd hit barriers within the system. So I think it's an interesting change. So who did you work with back then?
I worked with an agency called Children's Aid and Family Services. They were
Okay.
out of Northampton, Massachusetts. They're now called Berkshire Children and Families.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I forgot that was part of their history.
Yeah, yeah. And, and we went through MAP training, and of course, everybody was just like us. Everybody wanted to be the mom and the dad. It was the married,
Sure.
male-female couples. I remember part of the requirement was one of the parents had to be home and stay home, which meant quit a job or try to get a
Right.
leave of absence
Right.
for the first 6 months. Oh my goodness, there were just so many. You had to own a home. Renting was not an option. There were certain salary requirements, combined
Right.
salaries,
Right.
things that don't even exist today.
I know it's so well. I mean, there are still some standards of sorts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not super loose, but it's certainly not as tight and restrictive as it was.
Oh, no. And you just accepted it. That
right.
was the norm, and you just figured,
Well, everyone was
this-
going through the same process, and this is what you
Right,
had to do
right.
to
You
make
didn't-
it.
You never
make
knew
it
any
happen.
different. Yeah.
So I'm mindful of the fact that we're already speaking in jargon and using acronyms,
Yeah.
and so we're going to have a segment a little bit later on where we explain to people all these words that we're using. But as you were saying, MAP, I was thinking so familiar in our world, but for some of our listeners, they may not know what that is. So for anyone listening who's hearing new language, we'll go over all of that as we
Okay.
get through this, and every week we're going to go through new vocabulary words. So you've been doing this longer than I have at Mayor. Tell me a little bit about what brought you to Mayor and how, tell me a little bit about your journey as you were an adoptive parent and you
Okay.
then start to work in the
Yeah.
field. How did that all?
Well, obviously, I adopted my kids, so learning about an agency that worked worked with adoptive families was just triggered my interest. But prior to coming to Mayor, and I've been at Mayor almost 19 years now, I started in 2001. I worked for an agency called Parents Helping Parents.
Oh, okay.
And I met so many parents there that were at risk for having their children removed from them, and we helped them support each other in this group, and there was just a lot of DCF interaction with myself and these families that were coming to this support group. And a lot of these families were at the verge of having their children taken from them, going into foster care. It was just a very sad and eye-opening experience. And I just working with DCF, I felt a connection with so many of the workers that I worked with, and we're working with the families. And DCF used to have like a little taboo kind of reputation, but maybe that was just my perception. But it was just an eye-opener, and once I knew that there was a position open at Mayor in my region, the Western Mass
Right.
region, it was like I really do want to work with this agency. I want to work in the adoption area because of my passion for adoption and my own kids. So I felt it was a shoo-in for me.
Perfect fit.
Yeah.
Perfect
I
fit.
was a
Hand in a
shoo-in.
glove.
Yep.
And that's actually how I met you.
Yeah, we met
Many, many years ago.
many
Probably,
years ago. Yeah.
I won't say how long ago. But,
Yeah.
But that's, so my journey was a
Yeah.
bit different. I came from a corporate communication, sales, marketing kind of background. And as I went through training and got to know DCF, I was looking for opportunities to volunteer. And, how can I help you spread the message? How can I? And so that ultimately led to a number of engagements. I was president of the Area Advisory Board for one of the DCF offices for a number of years. I volunteer at a statewide level and with agencies. So Mayor happened to be one of those agencies that I was just to volunteer with and certainly engaged with as we adopted 7 children. I don't know if I actually gave the stats right, but 7 children over 20 years. And that's how I met Mo first, and then
At a
we
party,
now get
at a
to
party.
work together. Yes,
Yeah.
but she's an unforgettable aspect of this work. If you've ever been in Central and Western Massachusetts, everyone knows Mo, and you're just
thank
a
you.
huge advocate.
I'm
and
not
it's
sure
great,
that's a
but,
good thing,
but that's how I got to Mayor. I was running my own company and. was recruited by Mayor on a grant, and then we decided that we were going to formalize more of the work. And much of what you see today in terms of, we just dropped a new website. We've got a lot of social media engagement. Yeah. This fantastic podcast is all a result of the efforts that we've put into increasing awareness within the community for the need for adoption. So I think, being adoptive parents really helps. When dealing with families, it just gives you another lens.
Well, you do. You've got their perspective to go by,
right.
And then the other perspective also that you're working
social
from.
work, and I always like to say I have a nice 360-degree lens on the on the
So
work.
What was your major in college?
So undergrad business with a minor in marketing, and then an MBA. Yeah. So. What was yours?
And mine was personnel management.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got a bachelor's degree in personnel management, and then I started my master's when my son came.
Okay.
And I wanted to be an MBA, but didn't get that far. Okay. One of these days I may just go back and finish my MBA.
It's never too late. It's easier today than ever.
Yeah.
It's easier today than ever.
You're right.
And you and I are both total wallflowers, very shy. At events, we're just sitting in a corner. Of course not.
I was going to say, wait a minute, who's he talking to?
You may have met one. You may have met one or both of us.
Yes, you're not a wallflower. I'm not either. I'm pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Well, hey, you've got to be. So what I thought I would do, Mo, I'm going to tell everyone just a little bit about Mayor. I presume that many people know who we are, but there are a lot of questions. My team fields a lot of the communications we get from social media and some of the more general kinds of communications, and we often have questions about really who are you? And so what I hope to do is to introduce everyone in terms of getting to know your community supports first by introducing them to Mayor. So why don't I take the boring communications guy stats?
Okay, go ahead.
You can help me with some of the other pieces, right?
I'll just sit back and yawn.
Okay.
So
what some people are surprised to know is we're 61 years old. We celebrated our 60th anniversary. We had a little party there in 2018. But as a result of Mayor, over 6,600 children have been placed with families. And that's huge. Stats. So I'm the stats guy. Take a ribbing for it all the time. But I think for people to put things into perspective, it's important to know that there's currently, and I update my stats every fall. So, our listeners may be familiar with National Adoption Day and all of the work that we do. And that's a really good time to look and take a pulse of what's going on in the country and what's going on in the state. And so these are fairly fresh, right? So 9,600 children in foster care across the state. And so about 3,400 of those children are awaiting adoption. And, at some point as we progress through the podcast, we'll inform the audience a little bit more about what that whole process looks like. But for now, talking about a little less than a third of the kids, can't return home. And then of the 3,400 children, about 1,100 don't have a relative or potential adopter. And really, those are the kids that we work with at Mayor, right? And those are the kids we advocate for. And so some kids naturally through the process stay connected with other family members, or they might be with a foster family who is able and willing to adopt them. But then there are some kiddos who, just need a family. And that's what we're here to do, is encourage people to learn more about how to become that family for those kids. And so tell our listeners a little bit about what Mayor isn't.
We are not an adoption agency. We are an adoption exchange, and that means that we don't work. We work, to help families who want to adopt children awaiting adoption. And we connect prospective parents with social workers at DCF and other contracted agencies, and we could talk about other contracted agencies later.
For sure.
All while providing support to both the social worker representing the child and the families waiting to be adopted.
So your take on this is I'd appreciate your lens, both from the time that you've been doing this and also from the uniqueness of the fact that you've been working the western part of the state, and oftentimes, you have a different group of people from the west that maybe attend events in the east, and I get to see this statewide perspective. But I'm interested on your take. What's interesting is most people, the question that we get most often from people is around the fact that they think we're a decision maker. They think that we're an adoption agency, and we're not. We're an adoption exchange.
Yeah.
I tell people we build bridges.
Right. We're a conduit
We're a
between
conduit. Yep.
a family who wants a child and a DCF adoption worker who has children
Right.
that may be a perfect suit, a
Right.
match for a family. Yeah.
Yep. And so why don't we talk a little bit about, I guess, the ways in which parents can learn about adoption from foster care. And there's two lenses here, right? So the two areas that we work in are helping to support families in their engagement with the process. And then an area you're very familiar with in your role is working with social workers and kiddos, right? To present them. So as we discussed, public events where prospective parents can come to learn about adoption from foster care is one way that you can learn about who MARE is. But we do a lot of things to support parents. And our team is headed by our Director of Family Support Services, Diane Tamaz, and she is an adoptive parent who worked both on the child recruitment side and on family support side here at MARE. And so she works to directly create opportunities for family engagement. And then, of course, our buddy Ricardo Franco, who is a family support services coordinator, and he supports families in a lot of different ways, much in the same way Diane does, right? Everything from community building initiatives such as faith-based recruitment and other specialty programs, right up to including phone calls and emails and everything else. So if people want to learn more about adoption, how can the family support services team be reached? Let's tell everybody how they can kind of get in touch with.
Well, you can go onto MARE's website, www.mareinc.org. We have a direct phone number, 617-964-6273.
Yeah. And Diane is at 114, and Ricardo is at extension 124.
Right. I have to look that up on a piece of paper whenever I call because I can never remember that.
Or you can just call the main line, and our wonderful front-end coordinator will be happy to direct the call. Right?
Yeah,
Anna's
right.
fantastic.
Anna will help pass your call on to the right person. Let's see. We are...
Email?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Email is in that you can connect by email through our website. Let's see. What else?
So let's give them the emails. I'll give them. So Diane is Diane T like Thomas, at mareinc.org. And Ricardo is Ricardo F like Frank at mareinc.org. You can connect directly with them.
If you want to get me, though, I am M. Albano.
Oh.
Yeah.
Different format.
At mareinc.org.
Okay.
Yes. Because I've been here. I was going to say because I'm so old. No. Because I've been here so long when we started creating email addresses.
Gotcha.
They made it easy. Yeah.
Okay.
M. Albano at mareinc.org. I'd love to hear from people. You can also call me directly. I have a direct Western Mass number. I have a 413 area code. So it's 413-452-3431, just a plug.
Okay.
I like hearing from people. I like answering questions.
So I talked a lot about social media. So you'll find us on social media, all things social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we are at Mass Adopt. And then, of course, we have a wonderful blog, and that's where families can go to learn more about information that's relevant to things going on in their lives. Of course, we love contributors. And so the family support team, really, support services team, is really built around everything from teaching people what this is all about to supporting them right up through their adoption, right?
And after.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, really, people, we don't forget the minute that the gavel hits, right?
Right.
So we have other resources. So let's flip it. Let's talk about the other side of this, right? The other thing that we do is we match children,
We
right?
match children, yep.
So I can tell you a little bit about the communications piece of it, right? So one of the things that we do is we use newspaper, television, radio, in order to get our message out. And even though you may not know who we are, you probably have seen Sunday's Child in the Boston Globe. And I have never met anyone to date who doesn't know about WBC's Wednesday's Child. And those are programs that are our MARE programs. We also use things like the internet and social media, as I already said. We have a wonderful new newsletter that we just produced, and it's got a lot of information. We have over 10,000 people now who connect with us.
Wow.
Just on the newsletter alone, we are so pleased that the amount of people who support our work and help us to share our message. So, and let's talk about other aspects. Talk a little bit about matching events and what that's all about.
Well, we are proud to work with major partners such as Jordan's Furniture, Boys and Girls Club of Westfield, and they provide opportunities for families to meet waiting children in fun and exciting public events. We call them matching events, we call them matching parties, sometimes we call them adoption parties, but they're all to get families together with our waiting kids in a fun environment, and hopefully matches are going to be made.
And it's fun. And for the kids, it's fun.
Oh,
I think that's a
kidding?
question we get all the time is people have said to me who haven't experienced our events. So the kind of event you like aside, some people are okay with larger events, some people are okay with smaller events. Mm-hmm. The kind of event aside, the second biggest question I always get is around, how these events will play out. And will the children know that people... We are so good at just making it a big, fun play day,
right,
for the kids that they just have a blast.
The
Jordan's
priority is
Beanstalk.
Yeah.
Oh my God, those kids are on the climbing ropes and running around, and for some of them, it's friends seeing friends that they haven't seen
since the last party.
Sometimes siblings, right?
It's a great way for siblings to get together. But these kids have to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have fun first. That's our priority.
Yep.
If we can make matches after that and we encourage families to get out there and play with these kids, interact with them, not just stand back and watch. But we've had kids leave, more than a few kids. But we've had so many kids leave and go, so when's the next party?
Right.
When's the next party?
Right.
Yeah. What's it going to be? Yeah. Yeah.
And we have some we have some of our major events. So thinking about Jordan's and Assumption and Westfield Boys and Girls Club, some of what I'm thinking of as the bigger events. Not that there aren't smaller ones, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are designed for anyone who wants to learn about adoption, right up to those people who are looking to match, and they're great opportunities to do that, right? So so something like an Options or a Westfield Boys and Girls Club, you can just. If you have any interest at all and you'd like to just talk to somebody, we're there.
We're there. Just walk in and say, tell me what's going on here, and how do we start the process? Or I've got a friend who can't make it, but I thought I'd come over here. I think
or take a friend, or You can make it an outing.
Networking is the best way to find out some information, pass it on to friends,
meet other
family.
people who are interested, people from your community, right? No, I think it's great. And then, so the highest level of engagement, probably, or the biggest parties, right, are these where it's just open to everyone.
Yeah.
But then once you've gone through, so more, warning around language use, right? Once you've been home studied, and which is just part of this whole process, right? Once you've kind of gotten deeper into the process, then we have sort of specialty matching events that are still bigger. So like Beanstalk, Assumption College, right? There's roller skating events. There's all kinds of things that you can participate in, and then smaller specialty events. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So sometimes parents come to us, and what do they say? I have special skills at nursing,
right?
Or I can, we've thought about a child who has greater needs. Right. Right? Yep. So, so we have, so smaller events. Roller skating party I kind of put in the big one, but it's sort of a medium-sized event. It's not a giant space like Beanstalk.
Yeah, in contrast to what a Jordan's may sponsor with us. Yeah. But there are specialized parties.
Teen parties. You just did a teen party. You got one coming up.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that as a specific item. But
good percentage of our kids waiting, not just in my region, but are over the age of 12. Right. And there are people who really fall into that category, families who are looking for an older child for whatever reason. Maybe they just fit better in with the age of their birth children.
We had a teen adoptee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You might remember. And we actually, one of the parties I saw you at was at the party where we met my son, Devin.
Was it?
And the reason that we were going with the teen was at the time, it was before our last two little guys came to us. And we were looking at a timeline where he fit in between my daughter and my son.
Right.
And we had capacity, but we didn't necessarily think we wanted to change it. We used to call it the end of parenting, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
when is it
right.
Going,
We're almost there.
To college?
Yep.
When are they? And so, and then later said, oh, you know what? We're so family friendly. We can keep going, and had a couple of little guys. But teams, I have a lot of parents who say to me, I have kids who just went to college. And I've got an empty nest, and I've got this capacity. I don't know that I could handle a baby because I've got a career, but gosh, teens, slide
Yeah,
right into
they
families
do.
really easily sometimes.
And I'll tell you, teens have so much to offer. And we can go into that in another segment.
We
but
totally can.
Don't underestimate teens.
And I don't want to forget about, we have really nice special needs events. So Ironstone Farms is one that I think of.
Yeah. It's an equestrian party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For a lot of our children need a therapeutic approach to meeting families, and this is great. Horseback riding.
Oh my gosh. And they are fantastic. I mean, it's a smaller venue for sure.
It is.
And it's for people who really, intend on learning more about and pursuing children with more extreme special needs. But oh my God, we have so much, and it's all on the web, right?
Yep, it's all on our website.
As Maury would say, at www.mayorink.org.
Okay,
we get to have fun. Mo and I get to have
fun.
But you'll always find our party information there. And so the other piece of this, I guess that I shouldn't be remiss is in talking about is the fact that we have the matching parties where there's no children present at all. So for people who are, they're through the process and they're looking, they can meet up with social workers, promote sort of their family, and we're going to talk a little bit more about matching in a later episode. And I've got some ideas that I've used and that others have used, right? But there are also these other events. So we're not short on opportunities and ways in which you
definitely
can,
not.
Everything from
definitely not
very, 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 low level lift, like just looking at the website and browsing, through our information or looking at waiting children, up to and including you can be at a party talking to a social worker and fully engaged.
You never know about a kid until you meet them, and then that charm is out there. And
I tell everybody, and this was the case for me, it's a little bit like falling in love.
Yes.
You know when you know. When it clicks, it clicks.
Yep.
And you know.
Right? You think you're looking for a 10-year-old and you meet a 13-year-old and it's like, oh my gosh.
Ask me what we were looking for. Round one, first time out of the gate, what we were looking for.
What were you looking for, Joe?
4-year-old girl.
Yeah. Okay.
And we ended up with a 4.5-year-old boy and his 9-year-old brother.
Okay. See?
I tell everyone, don't get too locked in.
Yep.
You can have an idea of what it's it's going to be like for you, but try and have an open mind. Right. It works really well. All right, so I'm going to bring us back on track. We've thrown around a lot of terms today, and what do you say we try and review some of the common terms associated with foster care and adoption? We're going to do this every week, Mo, but let's try and help people better understand a little bit about our world. And hopefully I think we cover everything that we use for jargon and industry terms today. But so adoption agency versus adoption exchange. We are an adoption exchange. So we help to make connections. We don't directly place children, nor do we make decisions about the placement of children, but we help to facilitate the connection. We help to bring people together, and we have every player's interest in mind in the process, right?
Right.
Take the next one.
DCF stands for the Department of Children and Families. It's a state-run department.
Here in the state of Massachusetts, they're responsible for caring for children in foster care.
Right. We are a contracted agency by the state, by DCF, which means we get some funding from them to do our job.
And so do a lot of other agencies. And actually later on in the show, Allison Weissman's joining me from MSPCC KidsNet. And they're one of the contracted providers who, is able to bring some services to families who are engaged in this process. And we'll learn more about that. But there are a number of agencies that are contracted. One thing about DCF that I just want to make people aware of, and it took me a long time to figure this out. When you first come to this, and I don't think it was just me, because other people over the years have said the same thing, is DCF in charge of all the kids? Is DCF the one who's, going to be, overseeing everything? Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
With very few exceptions. So even private agencies.
So we are working with a private agency, one of these contracted agencies. DCF still is the main guy.
DCF is still the main guy.
Yeah.
They're in the background, and a lot of families don't always know that. So I think it's important for people to understand that. Quickly, I'm going to go through types and roles of social workers. This gets confusing, so anybody who's listening who's just beginning, right? So I think I'm calling these the four most common: the ongoing child's worker, the worker who's working with the biological family or the parents, an adoption worker, and then an ADLU worker. ADLU standing for Adoption Development Licensing Unit, and they work with families.
Right.
So sometimes people say, who are all these people? Right?
Lots of them.
Right?
Yep.
Why don't you take the next couple?
Prospective adoptive parent. That's who you are, I hope.
Maybe.
You know?
We could have people who are former adopters who are currently in the process. We could, but prospective meaning you want to learn something.
You want to learn something, right. A waiting parent is probably, I'm assuming what we're looking for here, somebody who maybe is in the process of going through, and we'll tell you what MAP means, but MAP class or being in the process of being home studied in order to be licensed to adopt. So
you're someone in the process.
Somebody
right?
in the process is a waiting parent.
And we define. So if we have an event, we'll say who can attend the event, right? So MAP is the Massachusetts Approach to Partnership in Parenting. It's a 10-week course that you can take through DCF or through a contracted agency. It's part of a standardization effort across the country to bring relevant and similar content to everywhere in the country. I was a MAP trainer. Were you ever a MAP trainer in all these years of?
No.
Yeah, I trained. That was one of my points of engagement with the department. And so it can be heavy. The most recent curriculum has a lot of heavy-duty content, and when I say heavy-duty, I mean talking about the kinds of backgrounds, issues, and challenges that children who you would be considering for adoption may have faced. I think it's relevant. I think it's important.
I've heard it's an eye-opener.
It can be.
From both the family's perspective and also the ADLU workers who are trained to be MAP presenters. Yes.
Home study. So the process starts by you making application. Once you've made application, there's some preliminary work done by the department. You are then invited to a MAP class, that Massachusetts Approach to Partnership in Parenting. Right. During the MAP class, you begin the home study process. Home study includes both a social worker coming to your home for some scheduled visits and for some checks. It also includes you writing a whole bio and presenting a lot of information to the department. We call this whole entire process mutual selection and assessment. Sounds professional.
Really?
Mutual assessment and selection. You know what it means?
No.
You learn about us, we're going to learn about you.
Yeah.
If either of us finds out something that we're uncomfortable with, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? And then last piece is just waiting children. Talk about the two ways in which we categorize waiting children in order to be able to present them.
Well, there are children who are not yet legally freed to be adopted, and these are the children who their parents' rights have not yet, birth parents' rights have not yet been terminated. And to be honest with you, Massachusetts, it's probably the majority of the children we work with. There are children whose parents' rights have been terminated, and we refer to them as legally freed children. And there's not as many of them out there, but there are children who are freed. And hopefully in the MAP training and in the home study process, you will begin to understand a little more about these two different types of children and maybe some risk involved and what you're capable of.
Separate topic, right? The topic of risk.
Yep.
And we'll get to that. Well, so there's a lot of terms. So hopefully we've demystified a little bit. Of course, if you have any questions, you can give us a call at 617-964-6273. Visit us at mirroring.org, right? There's lots of ways that you can begin to connect with us. And now it's time for one of my favorite segments. You're gonna connect us to some waiting children, Mo. Today we're going to learn about Jaden and William, and it's probably a good time to remind our listeners they can find information about either of the children on the website, mirroring.org, and you just simply click on this little tab at the top that says Meet the Children,
Right.
Click on Meet the Children, select Waiting Children. The little drop-down list pops down, right? And then you just put in the registration number, or you can search through all waiting children or create a custom search. So anyway.
Okay.
So you will give everyone the registration numbers along with all the information about the children.
Well, one of my favorites, and of course, I can talk about favorites, I want families to go into the Mayor website and look up Jaden. Cutest little girl, 7126 is her Mayor registration number. And she wants to be a cheerleader when she grows up. Usually we start out a conversation about our kids with their aspiration. So she wants to be a cheerleader, although she has not said with what team.
That's okay.
But
no, that's good.
hey,
she's got a direction.
More power to her, right?
I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. But she does. She wants to be a cheerleader. She's 9 years old. She's of Caucasian descent. She is lovable and wise beyond her years. This is what her foster mom says about her.
Okay.
She will be entering, or she did enter the 3rd grade this past fall. She loves to help her foster mom in the kitchen. She loves to help preparing food and meals. Likes to be outside riding her bike or inside doing arts and crafts. Favorite thing to make, not to eat, but make, is slime. She is the world's greatest slime maker, and I don't know what the ingredients are, but
it involves glue and glitter.
Does it? She's a slimist, let's put it that way.
Okay.
That means she makes slime, but she also likes swimming, going to amusement parks. She does well with a lot of one-on-one attention, and I'm sure it's because she maybe didn't get this in her past. So in her foster home, she probably should be the youngest of children. So if you've got children older than, let's say, 10, 12, that type of thing, she'd probably fit in very well.
Okay.
She's adorable.
Good. And who else are you presenting today?
Will. Well, William for his official name.
Do we call him Will?
We call him Will.
All right.
Quirky little Will. His registration number is 6318. He does like to tell jokes. He's a jokester and funny stories. He's
cute.
Also age 9. He is really fun-loving. He is of Hispanic and Caucasian descent. He is an outgoing and fun-loving kid who has tons of friends. Very social at school and after school. He's been described as being very helpful to others and very polite. Uses his manners all the time. He admires his older brother and his sister, and he looks to them for guidance. Yeah, he does. His brother and sister live in Western Mass, so he needs contact with them. I just wanted to throw that out there because, sometimes location's important.
Sure.
He likes to play video games. What boy at 9 doesn't? He likes to build with Legos and do arts and crafts activities. He can take a carton or 3 or 4 cartons and he can create a castle. It doesn't have to be with Legos or
artistic.
blocks. He's very artistic, very creative, artistic. Nice. He has an aspiration to continue with his education after high school. He is part of the Breakfast Volunteer Club at school, and he's very proud of his responsibility.
Okay.
He is freed for adoption. I meant to tell you that Jaden also is freed for adoption, now that I mentioned this about Will. So both of these children are freed for adoption, and Will would do really great in almost any family constellation, with or without other children in the home. I mean, he's a good fit for just about anybody.
Hey, can we do one little extra piece of vocab for people?
Yeah.
Family constellation. What do we mean when we say that?
You could be a mom and dad family, a 2-mom family, a single guy,
2-dad family, single woman.
Anybody, anybody. Yeah.
Feels a little jargony, so I want to make sure people know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I probably should leave that out. I write that a lot, and it really should be more descriptive of it.
We do talk about it in case there are limitations sometimes, right? Yeah. So sometimes we might say, no older children in the home, or there's reasons why we qualify things that way. So we don't want to get people engaged and get their hopes up if there really is some limiting factor.
Right. There aren't any limits though with Will. He would fit in well with any family. with or without other children in the home of any age, but he does have that connection to his brother and his sister. Oh, and his grandmother also. I forgot about Grandma. She lives out in Western Mass. So you need to be a family who has no issues about keeping him connected. It's important to him.
If you want to learn about Jaden, registration number 7126, or Will, registration 6318. You can visit us at marewink.org. Call us at 617-964-6273. Of course, attend a fabulous event out in Western Mass, or check us out on social media. Mo, this has really been fun, educational. Of course, working with you is always fun.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so excited.
Back at you.
I look forward to co-hosting with you again next month.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll be back with our special guest, Allison Weissman from MSPCC KidsNet. Be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. This is our Adopt Topic segment where I get the opportunity to introduce you to community members who have interesting roles and stories about adoption. My next guest is part of an amazing community resource. She's been working to support Massachusetts foster and adoptive families for over a decade and a half as in her role as KidsNet Western and Central Mass Director. Please welcome Allison Weissman. Welcome, Allison. Would you prefer Allison or Allie?
Allie sounds perfect.
Perfect. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about MSPCC KidsNet? What's the history? Who do you serve?
Well, MSPCC is for prevention of cruelty to children. It started in 1878. It's a great organization. Wow. I ended up coming into the KidsNet program in 2004. It started off, I believe, in 1997. And it was basically thought about to help support families with all the things that the families are actually going through. Since there's trauma with the children, we wanted to have training resources in order to help them work with the children that are in their home. We also decided that we thought that they needed respite. And respite is just like paid vacation on a regular job.
Sure.
So you get 10 days, which are 9 overnights a year, so that you can go on vacation if you'd like. If you have a family emergency, it's also good for that. But it's basically just your own time in which DCF continues to pay for the care for the children to you, but we end up paying the provider.
So it's an extension of, MSPCC KidsNet program is an extension of the core work that the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children had been engaged in for over a century.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was just a natural extension of it. And what brought you to KidsNet?
I started off with MSPCC because I absolutely love that agency.
Okay.
I had run and opened restaurants, and I was also always volunteering in different things. So I was with Make-A-Wish, I was with the Red Cross, and when I moved to Massachusetts, I found MSPCC, and I fell in love with their values. My goal was always to create healthier and happier families of all types.
All right.
And so we helped support their programs by fundraising and raising money. So I was on their board. At the same time, I was having my own children, which are all now grown, in schools.
Okay.
And I realized that 10% of the students in my elementary school for the children were involved with DCF in some way.
So was that your first enculturation into the foster care system? You said you had some other volunteer histories in the past?
Well, I had other volunteer histories, and I have to say my twin sister was a foster parent in California.
Okay.
She was also a foster parent in Massachusetts, and
So
my
you knew
older sister was a foster parent. Yeah. So I definitely, we had always been, our whole goal was working with children and families. As a family, we love to make healthier communities. And in order to do that, you need to work with children and families because that's what makes a healthier community.
So you were a true mission-driven person, right?
I absolutely,
So you started out telling me a little bit about some of the programming, but tell me a little bit about, so MSPCC KidsNet is committed to helping strengthen families, foster families, helping to provide resources, foster pre-adoptive families, I guess, it's sort of that extension, right? So tell me a little bit about what the program does. I'm sure many of our listeners have heard about MSPCC KidsNet, but maybe not everyone knows everything that's offered. What kinds of programs and supports are available to people?
I'll go over a little overview of each, just to give you an idea. So first and foremost, we have our out-of-hours helpline, which is the off hours from DCF. So anything over the weekend or from 5 p.m. at night until 9 a.m. in the morning.
So that means if I'm a family and my worker typically works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and I have a question and I call my DCF office, I get nothing.
You get nothing.
If I call the out-of-hours helpline, I can actually talk to somebody.
You can. For that, I would actually, just a regular talk, I would say I'm going to refer you to a family resource liaison, and we'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
We'll stay with the hotline.
All right.
Hotline is more of an emerging situation. You're going through a crisis with your child, and you're not exactly sure how to handle it, and you're afraid, do I call an ambulance? How am I supposed to navigate this?
Right.
They are the people to call. They're social workers, off hours, helping to support you through any circumstance. If it gets to the level where you need to have a child removed, then they get a hold of the Judge Baker line and get a hold of DCF, and then DCF intervenes and helps.
So it's somebody who, in the off hours when you traditionally might not have the support of your social worker, can help you navigate the kinds of things that come up.
Exactly.
Not everyday things, but things where you really need some assistance, some big time assistance. So what are people calling if they need that line? What do we have them?
That would be your family resource liaison, and that is another piece of the KidsNet program.
Okay.
So a family resource liaison is a foster adoptive parent that's been fostering and has more than likely adopted through the system and has been in the system for many years. They're familiar with your DCF office, so each DCF office has their own family resource liaison.
Gotcha.
Although they're not working for DCF, they're working for you.
So that's important, right? So it's an advocate for you as a foster or pre-adoptive parent. It's
right.
Someone who's on your team.
Right.
Right.
They also run support groups and trainings each month.
Okay.
In that, there's a core group of people that generally go to the trainings and support groups that are a wealth of information because they share with each other their everyday, it takes a village to raise a child type of situations.
And you need a community when you're doing this, right?
You do. And your community becomes something different when you foster and adopt.
Mine did.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And the language you use and how you talk about things and how you engage with other people. I know one of the big benefits to getting together in groups early on for me was my biological family, my own family, didn't necessarily understand exactly what I was going through. They didn't understand trauma, abuse, and neglect. They didn't understand the impacts to kids. And I met other great people who had been through it. And I could say things like, I'm having a really difficult time with whatever, that I might not be able to say to my parents, to my brother, right? Because they might not have a frame of reference for it. And when I would go to the groups, people would look at me and say, oh, don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
I've been through that. That'll pass.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And if you look at anything that happens in the foster and adoptive world, it is a foreign thing to most people to have. Originally, when I do some trainings with families, that I want to help understand what fostering and adopting looks like, and especially fostering.
Right.
I make the people that are normally sitting in their regular everyday seats, or who they sit next to, because generally when you come in with a group, you're sitting next to who you want to. Are you going to mix it up a little bit? I have them get up, leave all of their stuff in their seat, and move to another seat, and then listen to the presentation, because it gives them the idea of this is what a kid coming into care. They didn't know when they came in. Right. They don't know where they're going. They're not exactly always sure what the circumstances were. And they have no real connection to anything. They have their hands, their whole body is placed where they're not able to really.
So let's put them in a frame of mind to help them with that. So you talk about so two things. So there's the out of hours helpline, and so we should probably give the number. That's 800-486-3733. 830. And again, as you said, they're open 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. So basically those times when someone's not on staff and 24 hours on the weekend. So, when someone's not on DCF staff. Family resource liaisons, you'll probably talk more later about connecting with you and others, right? But training, you mentioned training. So tell me a little bit about MSPCC's role in training.
So training has always been a big component because we MSPCC is all about prevention, and we know that the best way to prevent things is to learn different techniques.
This whole podcast is all about education.
Right.
Right? Education is the way to change and to help people move through processes. So.
And give them tools.
Right.
Tools that hopefully are going to be helpful for whatever circumstance comes along. Of course, we have trauma trainings. We have the new ACEs training just to teach you about what ACEs is, which was fantastic. We have a
Explain
conference.
ACEs. We try and not use acronyms. I'm trying to get used to it. So what is ACEs?
Oh, boy. That's going to be hard. I can explain it, but I don't know why it's called ACEs. To me, ACEs is basically the connection between mental health and physical health and the impacts that it has on children and people throughout their lives. So basically, two doctors in California created about 20 years ago, they started doing a study and they really formulated some information that was helpful to put the two things together, mental health and physical health, and where it puts you and where it can put your health if you end up not getting help. So basically, it's a way of teaching people that it is important, the connections, and how to reach out to your community and become maybe a partner in supporting it, or use the resources. So,
you just thought of it, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It's adverse childhood experiences. So.
Gotcha.
Basically what it is what's happened in your childhood or what's happened in your life at any point, how it affects your overall health, and how we can support the communities and the people that actually need more support around that in order to make it healthier.
But I look at your training schedule. It's all over the state.
Oh, yeah.
It's all year round.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Looks like it's probably put out in 6-month chunks, right? I think the one I looked at now goes like January to June. And then, I was on the site last fall and it picks up from July to December, right? So
it is. So
people, I guess we'll give them the website address as we go through here, but it's all online. It's all available. Anyone can attend. Do I have to register? How do I, I'm a foster parent. I'm a pre-adoptive parent. How do I engage in all of this? How do I
So the training schedule that you'll see online, it has the different regions. So it'll have West, it'll have Central, Boston, Northeast, Southeast. Any questions, you can always call the KidsNet director for that area. I am West and Central, and you can call me directly. I'll give you my contact information at the end to get everyone else's contact information rather than have me read through.
Sure. Or the website, right?
Or the
website.
Right. Just so that you can see, is there going to be childcare available at that one or not? Do I use KidsNet program childcare for that?
Okay.
Which we'll talk about that too.
Can I just show up? Do I have to pre-plan this? Is there someone I have to call?
You can just show up.
Because you talk about what it is, where it is, when it is.
Right.
Right?
So you're more than welcome to just show up. If you're planning on bringing children with you, it's definitely a good idea to call see
ahead.
whether or not we have childcare. Other than that, you can show up to any of them across the state.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Perfect.
And there's probably one every single day across the state.
Right.
So
you talked about in the opening, we were kind of talking a little bit about your role and the history, and you briefly got into respite a little bit. But I guess so you're talking about childcare, and respite certainly falls within that, and that's a huge piece of what MSPCC provides. Right? It is. You are the agency of record. You're the contracted agency who helps foster parents when they need respite in providing, sort of the money for it, right? But there's things that people need to do, right? There are steps that people need to take. Tell me a little bit about, I'm a foster parent, I'm a pre-adoptive parent. I have access to, you said, up to 10 days of respite per year, right? So how do I start that process? What is that like? Okay,
we're going to start off with the very basics. You're a foster kin pre-adoptive parent that's working with departmental DCF care, not IFC families, which would be
bit of a separate contract.
It's a separate contract. But if you're in if you have children in regular departmental care,
so Department of Children and Families, I'm kinship, I'm foster or I'm pre-adoptive. Okay.
And you want to take a vacation. just you and your honey. You're going to call your family resource worker in your area office and let them know, I will say this because the way our system is right now, so overwhelmed. Right. It's great if you have 6 weeks at least advance notice. If you don't, it's okay.
Okay.
But 6 weeks is really a thoughtful way to do it. And I'll tell you why.
Okay. And we're talking about planful time away, right? So there's no reason why we can't have.
Sometimes it's an emergency. Sometimes you have a death in the family and you need to leave.
But if it's planful.
Right. If it's planful.
So we're talking about planful, 6 weeks minimum. If you got more, you've got more. Chances are if you're planning a vacation, you're probably doing it, a little ways out.
Or you're taking a weekend away. You can take a couple of weekends away. Sure. You don't have to do 10 days all at once. Okay. So that's another important thing to know. You don't have to use it. If you don't use it, you do lose it.
Okay.
Fiscal year starts July 1st and ends June 30th.
Okay.
So you're going to want to use it in that
And we have to do
period.
it within the fiscal year if we're a kinship foster or a pre-adoptive parent, right? So, and the clock starts July 1st and ends June 30th, and that's how we count the number of days we use.
That's correct. Okay. And we keep track of that as well. So you're the pre-adoptive foster kid and parent, and you're going to call your family resource worker. You're going to let them know that you need respite.
Okay.
So if you don't have a provider, they're going to find a provider for you, which is going to be another foster or pre-adoptive or pre-adoptive home.
If I have someone in my family who's been quarried to help provide coverage for me, or if I've got someone in a MAP class that I went to together, we talked about MAP earlier in the show, and if I know another quarried provider, someone who, maybe I trust or know to be can I talk to my worker about them?
Yes. So if it's another foster parent that's a licensed foster parent, DCF has to figure that situation out, whether or not they have enough space in their home.
And that's not you,
that's
right?
Not
this
me.
is all done through, but I could talk to my worker. I could say to my worker, Allie is another foster parent that I know, and she, has, the capacity to help me out while I'm away for the weekend.
Right.
Can we do that? But I have to ask my worker.
You have to ask your worker. The other thing is if you have a family member, if you have somebody that knows the child, if you have a babysitter that you use, not one of ours, but one of yours, they can come into your home and do the child care as long as they're courier approved through DCF.
Okay.
If you let DCF know that you have that person, they're over 18 years old, and they're over 4 years older than the kids in your home. So if you have a 16-year-old, you have to have a 20-year-old.
Gotcha.
But basically, they'll go over the guidelines with you. The care then needs to happen in your actual home. It cannot happen at the provider's home.
Okay.
But I think it's more comfortable for kids. It's great if you have family or friends to do it in your home because it's a much easier transition, especially with schools.
Well, and we're also talking about kiddos who might have already had, a little bit of bounce and, stability. It's probably, you're going to be away, so it's good to keep them at home.
But if you don't, then you also always have DCF. Also, if you're involved with a group, a support group or trainings, a lot of times there's child care providers that other people have used. And you can ask them, hey, does anybody have anyone that they know of that would be fantastic to come in and do respite?
On Facebook, I sometimes see, people have connections and they get to know each other and they're helping to provide for each other. But let's get through all right. So we have to have a resource that's DCF approved. And then how does MSPCC become involved? Does DCF call?
DCF notifies us.
Okay.
So they have to fill out a form letting us know that this is going to be the provider, this is the foster family, these are the children, these are the amount of days that they're going. And then we contact the provider and have them fill out paperwork.
Okay.
And that's our only part in it. You're more than welcome to call us if you have questions.
Sure.
But we will refer you back to your family resource person rather than because we can't help you.
Right. Right. But you do provide the coverage. You do provide some guidance. Right. And so that's respite. And then short-term child care, I guess, is probably the last piece for us to...
Yeah. So short-term child care is something that you get 10 hours a month of, however you want to use it. If you want to go out every Tuesday for 2 hours and it comes out to 10 hours for the month, that's great. You need to notify us, and that would be KidsNet. Mm-hmm. So that's your KidsNet assistant. Mine would be Nettie in the West, and for Worcester would be Deb.
Okay.
The rest of the state has the same. You can contact me and I can get you that information. Also, it's on the website.
So not the same as respite. I don't have to find my own person. I arrange it right through you.
And it's for your own personal time. You don't have to give a reason. You don't have to say I'm going to.
I have an appointment. I don't have to tell you why.
Yeah,
but I need some downtime.
Personal.
I need to go take care of something.
Right.
Okay.
I need personal time on these dates. These are the children in my care.
Sure.
They're going to ask your address, phone number, the children in your care, the best way to reach you, because we're contracted with another agency through the EEC.
Okay.
It's called Child Care Circuit. They're across the state. They are actually the ones that coordinate with the child care providers in your area to find a provider to provide care for your kids.
Gotcha.
You then once you get approval, you call us, give us the information. We send it out. The actual providers call you. You get confirmation. And then you're set to go.
Do they come to me? Am I bringing my kids somewhere?
Oh, no. You bring them to their house. So they're in-home childcare that are specially trained KidsNet. They are actual childcare providers, but they go through extra training around trauma and different things to help be more supportive to our families.
You know, I have something that comes up from time to time. And you started out by saying, and when you were talking about the FRLs, you said they don't work for DCF, right? If I ask you, what do you say when people say, you know, is my discussion with you and your peers confidential? Will DCF have access to what you discuss? What would you say to that?
It's confidential. So any relationship that anything that we talk about is confidential, unless, of course, I'm a mandated reporter, as are the FRLs. So if we had some fear of abuse or neglect, then we have to.
Within the guidelines normal reporting.
Right. Okay. But definitely, we get all sorts of phone calls from families, mostly asking about different supports, what's available, how do I get a therapist in my area. It can be anything.
Well, this has been incredibly informative. I'm glad to learn more about MSPCC and all you're doing. Ellie, you mentioned you've got counterparts throughout the state. People can contact you, but for reference, should we tell them who the various directors are around the state, and then how to reach you? Yeah.
So we have, for Boston, it's Deanna Forrest.
Okay.
For the Southeast, it would be Kimberly Kelly.
Okay.
For the Northeast, it is Carol Casey.
And of course, you're Central and West.
Yes.
And if people want to reach you, what's the best number for them to call?
My best number is 413-364-1896. And for any questions, if you need to know who the FRL is in your area, if you're not able to get on the website has a wealth of information.
And we should give the website, it's MSPCC.org.
Correct.
And then I remember that you have to then go in and you go into the menu, and then you have to look for foster care and adoption. And then if you open that page, then you can find KidsNet, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And how about email address?
For my email, I'll give it to you. It's going to be easier. It's A.
Right.
Weissman, WEISSMAN @MSPCC.org.
Perfect. So you'll be welcome to you're welcome to and open to fielding calls about anywhere in the state, and you can help direct people if they have questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really pleased that we're able to present you and MSPCC KidsNet, and I'm sure it was very informative for our listeners. And so hopefully you'll join us on our next show, and thanks for joining us. All right, so if you want to learn more about MSPCC KidsNet, visit mspcc.org, select the Our Work tab, select Foster Care and Adoption from the pick list, and then select KidsNet in the first paragraph for all the program details that we discussed today, or call them at 617-983-5800. If folks want more information about any of our topics today, including how to become an adoptive parent, please visit us at mareinc.org or call us at 617-964-6273. And don't forget to look for our show next month when we'll discuss more adoption-related topics and meet new and interesting guests. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Joe Sandagato. Have a great day.